For decades, the driving idea behind reform has been to end insurance company abuses and make coverage available for those without it. The public option is only a means to that end. And we should remain open to other ideas that accomplish our ultimate goal.
President Obama's health care law was supposed to extend coverage to all. But as the bill's provisions go into effect, many employers are looking to ditch their health benefits altogether. What does this mean for individual consumers? And will a Florida legal challenge be the death knell for Obamacare? Joining me from Washington, D.C. to discuss is Hadley Heath, Senior Policy Analyst at the Independent Women's Forum. Hadley, thank you so much for being here. According to recent news reports, Hadley, 30% of employers will drop health care benefits once Obamacare provisions go into effect in 2014. Wasn't the president's plan supposed to expand coverage for all?
Right, and the president promised that if you like your current coverage, you'll be able to keep it, which we see for many people who get their insurance through their employer is not going to be the case. This report that came out today showed that 30% of employers are almost definitely or thinking about dropping their coverage when the Obamacare mandates kick in, and 50% of them who know a lot about the law are in that category.
So, Hadley, what implications does this have for an already fragile economy?
Well, you know, one of the big problems in our economy as it relates to small business and as it relates to families is that we're just so unsure. We don't know what's going to change in our health insurance plan. We don't know if the economy is going to improve or get worse, and different estimates point us in different directions. But in terms of the economy, many people who didn't have health insurance before will either be pushed onto Medicaid rolls or dropped into these healthcare exchanges that are subsidized by taxpayers. So this is not good news any way you look at it.
Right. And as it stands right now, 12 cents of every household dollar is spent on health care. Will this change for individuals if the Affordable Care Act is not repealed?
Well, those in the individual market will be the most affected by rising health care costs in terms of insurance premiums. I think President Obama promised in 2008 that he wanted to lower every family's premiums by $2,500 a year. And that's another unfulfilled promise because we see that health care costs are going to continue to go up and not down.
Right. They are unfulfilled promises, and we've seen multiple legal challenges to the president's law. And on Wednesday, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals will hear the state of Florida's constitutional challenge against Obamacare. What's at stake in this particular case?
Well, sure. I think we've been talking about the practical reason that the Affordable Care Act won't work. In practice, it's not going to work because there's no way the government knows better what you and I want in our health insurance than we do. But there's also a philosophical argument, and one in which our freedoms are limited. You know, the choice of what kind of health insurance you want is a very personal decision, and this law is going to require that every American obtain health insurance and dictate what kind of health insurance. So one of the provisions that's being challenged in court is the individual mandate. Today in Atlanta, Georgia, Florida, along with 25 other states, 2 individual plaintiffs and the National Federation for Independent Business took their challenge to the federal government in oral arguments, and we will wait to see what the ruling is in this case. It's a case not just about the individual mandate, but the expansion of Medicaid, and those are 2 big changes that this law will bring about that we're not sure fit within the constitutional limits of our government. I think not, and the plaintiffs think not either, but we'll wait on the federal government to try to defend how they can fit this into a constitutional plan for government.
Right, and as you mentioned, the individual mandate isn't the only thing being reviewed in this case. The issue of Medicaid expansion, as you said, and its burden on the states is also being considered. So what is the main argument against the president's Medicaid plan?
Sure. Well, Medicaid is a relationship between the federal government and states' governments. So, for example, there are other relationships when the federal government says, states, I will give you money for your roads if you set your legal drinking age at 21. They can strike a deal with state governments that persuade them to make decisions in state-level policy. But there are some things that the federal government tries to do that can interfere with state-level policy so much that they become coercive or commandeering. And this is the charge that plaintiffs have made against the federal government in terms of Medicaid.
Absolutely. Florida is not the only state that is joining in this lawsuit. They're one of 25 states. When can we expect this case to be argued in front of the Supreme Court?
This case, in terms of a timeline, may reach the Supreme Court in October of 2012, but I don't think that the ruling would come down in time for the November 2012 presidential election, which a lot of public opinion will depend on, who wins or who loses out in the Supreme Court level. There are other cases, however, in several other appellate circuits this summer. We've already heard 2 cases in the 4th Circuit, 1 in the 6th Circuit. This Florida case is in the 11th Circuit. The 3rd, 9th, and D.C. circuits will also have hearings this summer, so we'll wait to see which one of these cases makes it to the highest court.
Hadley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You can read more of Hadley's work at the Independent Women's Forum over at IWF.org. And stay up to date on the fight to end Obamacare by clicking on over to healthcarelawsuits.org. And let me know what you think. Are you worried about losing access to health benefits once Obamacare goes into full effect? When do you think this case will end up before the Supreme Court? Let me know in the comments section below. For PJTV, I'm Danika Quinn.